Welcome to the Turkish Airlines series podcast. I'm BJ Cunningham, and today we're sitting with Sedat Bornovalı. Is that correct?
Sedat Bornovalı.
Bornovalı. Sedat Bornovalı. Fantastic. He's an art historian, cultural translator, and keeper of memories that most of us don't even know we're losing. Sedat has spent decades not just guiding people through Turkey's monuments, but mediating between civilizations. He's a man who had to find words when Pope Benedict XVI stood in Hagia Sophia, a space that's been a church, a mosque, a museum, and a mosque again. He's watched Istanbul transform from Byzantine jewel to Ottoman capital to modern megalopolis, and he carries the weight of all of those stories. So this isn't about tourism. This is about what happens when somebody dedicates their life to remembering what others forget, translating between epochs and racing against time to preserve meaning and stories before it's paved over. Let's begin. Sedat, it's such a pleasure to have you here with us. Thank you. Before we dive into the weighty topics that I've lined up, I'd love for our listeners to get a feeling for you, to get to know you a little better, but in your own words. Tell us a little bit about your background, about your childhood, where this story started for you, and how you found yourself dedicating your life to history, heritage, and the stories that live within Turkey's cultural landmarks.
I discovered that I dedicated myself, my life, my career to Turkey's heritage just when I realized where I was. I was born in this wonderful city. I was very luckily born in this wonderful city in Turkey, in Istanbul. And I realized that whatever other people were coming to see as heritage, as beauty, as wonder, was part of my ordinary life, my daily life. Well, I realized that late when I started observing other people. But at the end, actually, I was born and I was simply so lucky to live always in something other people considered is sort of heaven.
And did you look at things originally through the lens of history or through the lens of art or through the lens of culture? What's the background to this, to what you've become?
I was simply an observer. I was observing. I was looking. There was no lens. There was no point of view. I was enjoying. I always enjoyed what is beautiful. And as I was saying, fortunately, there's a lot around.
You're right. I mean, Istanbul is the queen of cities. It's a magnificent place. I want to dive into one particular thing that I know about you. November 2006, and I love this. You're guiding Pope Benedict XVI, the Pope, through Hagia Sophia, and this is a Catholic Pope in a space that's been a church, mosque, museum, mosque again. How did you navigate those layers of sacred, contested history?
Contested history, perhaps when you look from somewhere else, from the outside. It's not contested history for us. They are all layers of real, actual history accumulated in this very place where I was born and where I live, where I continue talking about.
That's a beautiful answer. This leads to the next question, which is power has its own particular way of seeing something. Right at the beginning of this, you introduced yourself very accurately as an observer. Power has its own way of observing. Presidents and diplomats walk through the same spaces as poets and children, but see completely different things. What truth about Turkey does authority continuously miss, no matter how carefully you explain?
Fortunately, this does not happen. Poets and children probably have more time to linger, to observe, to listen to me. Diplomats and presidents have the burden of responsibility, so they have less time. So it's somehow a misfortune, I can say. They may dedicate less time only. But I have always been very satisfied with the attention I got from diplomats, from presidents.
Sedat, you've guided presidents and popes, as we've just heard. But guides often say their most profound moments come from the most unexpected visitors or guests. Tell me about someone, perhaps someone that normally society overlooks, who saw something in the stones you were showing them that all of the scholars missed.
Fortunately, the society doesn't overlook children, but perhaps people don't expect the best of the observations or the questions from children, but they do give the best insights. Very often, it happens that I'm at first surprised by a child's question, then I respond, then I realize that I was missing this explanation. So I realized that I should have thought about it much before, much earlier, and during the following tour, it comes somehow instinctive that I start with the reply I had given to the boy, to the girl, as if the new group has asked me that question.
I love that.
Very often I instinctively say, this question, this sort of question may come into your mind, and people look at me surprised because
it's in their mind.
Or probably it's not, and they are surprised hearing the beauty of that question or that introduction. I very often borrow questions from the children of previous groups.
Art historians usually study dead things. You're translating living cities that change while you're speaking about them. How do you teach history when the history you're teaching is being demolished 2 streets away?
History is not being demolished. We may be losing some historic artifacts. That's normal. Nothing is eternal. Nothing is permanent. And in the meantime, we continue to discover new things. We make excavations. We discover archives. We digitize archives. We can access more knowledge. So I'm not a pessimistic person. Something changes, that's true. But history is all of this. History is not only the some stones that are not there anymore.
So history changes.
History evolves. History accumulates.
This is an excellent answer, Sedat. Now, you wrote about Casa Garibaldi, worked on restoration. But for every building saved, how many disappear? What have you watched vanish from this great city, from Istanbul, that can never be recovered? Not just buildings, but ways of being, culture.
I don't see any reasons to despair. At the end, there are churches built on temples. We cannot cry because we don't have the pagan temple underneath the Hagia Sophia anymore. As long as we continue building good habits, nice buildings, and a strong future, something will disappear, other things will come.
So it's not about nostalgia. It's not nostalgic. It's actually about what's real, what's here, what's now, and what will be.
I mean, nostalgia exists and may exist for every single thing will be lost. But we know nothing will be eternal.
So every guide has that one detail that's not in any guidebook. It's a special piece of knowledge that they carry that transforms how people see a site or a monument. What's yours for Hagia Sophia? The fact that makes tourists stop and wake up.
Hagia Sophia is full of legends, and people hear about these legends before coming to visit it. And in my opinion, it's the very moment when they realize that the concrete, the solid building, the actual building, is actually, with its truth, is much more extraordinary than the legends invented around it.
Beautiful. Do you ask your visitors to put their iPhones away? You know, like when you're in school and you're told, put your phones away.
I don't even do that at the university. I say they're free. They may use their phones inside the classroom. Then they put it away more easily. Instead of imposing, it's better to try to attract their attention. And in any case, they take pictures. People like taking pictures.
So that's a great answer. Now you're translating between Ottoman Turkish, Byzantine Greek, modern Turkish, tourist English, not just languages, but entire worldviews. What concepts exist in Ottoman consciousness that modern minds literally can't grasp?
One of the things I like most in Ottoman tradition, in Ottoman social habits, is that if there is an issue, not only the guilty person, but also the others who tend to articulate the issue publicly are guilty. It's ayıp, it's shameful to talk about ugly things, issues loudly. So the tendency must be to solve the issue instead of what we love a lot today. We like complaining, complaining and blaming.
Okay.
So you have to disguise, you have to cover the problems and solve them in a silent way instead.
That's beautiful. And has that disappeared from modern Turkish culture, or is that still rooted?
It is still rooted in traditional families, in traditional parts of the society.
Now, Turkish Airlines connects more countries than any other carrier, bringing millions of people through Istanbul every year. But connection isn't comprehension. How do you make someone from Ohio understand that the Bosphorus means, how do you, in 3 hours, when it takes a lifetime to understand this, how do you explain it?
Connection, anyway, is a great beginning. Without connection, you don't reach anywhere. Connection is indispensable. So it's a great start. Sometimes even a transit passenger, just having an idea of Istanbul gets the desire to come back. Very often, being obliged to use Turkish Airlines because it's the best carrier between a point in the world and another one, it creates the desire.
I notice at the airport in Istanbul, there's a museum. Suddenly I understand why there's a museum. It's to create that connection and start a conversation so that Turkish Airlines can bring these passengers back.
It's a great museum, and the transit passengers are even luckier than some of the locals because there are very beautiful, very important pieces that temporarily are exhibited in the airport, so they are not accessible by the locals.
Sedat, thank you. I never really thought about it that way. I thought it was incongruous to have a museum at an airport. Now, Turkish Airlines connects more countries than any other airline in the world. From your perspective as a cultural guide and art historian, what does this kind of global connectivity mean in today's divided world? Can a flight path become a form of cultural diplomacy?
Definitely so. I can say before Turkish Airlines was so large a company, before Turkish Airlines connected so many countries, I heard about, even myself, I heard about other countries thanks to their airlines. So sometimes the only thing we know about a country, about a small country, is their airlines. And as far as I heard from many people, it may be best known thing about Turkish Airlines.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And in fact, it's not just an airline. It's often a flying ambassador for Turkey, offering travelers their first glimpse of the country's hospitality, culture, landscape. How do you see Turkish Airlines' role in shaping global perceptions of Turkey?
It is crucial and it works perfectly. And even my former clients, former tourists, former visitors, after having visited Turkey, very often fly Turkish Airlines and send me selfies on Turkish Airlines visiting other countries.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's no better way to reach any other airline than, I mean, it is the meeting point of the world, the airport, and Turkish Airlines, is the place through which you can get anywhere.
Plus, it seems that it constructs a bond.
Now, Sedat, you must see the same mistakes, the same misunderstandings, the same Western projections onto Eastern spaces thousands of times, day after day. What misconception about Turkey are you most tired of having to correct?
It's very typical for visitors to come with an orientalistic, non-existent image of my country. Plus, imagining that Turkey has a very homogeneous past and homogeneous present. It is only mosques, it is only ancient cities, or it's only even desert. Turkey is a little bit everything, and I'm responsible of explaining them that Turkey is not only, perhaps it's something they adore, no matter what, but it's not true. I mean, it's not only that slice, but Turkey is much more.
Okay, I want to talk now about the race against forgetting, the race against loss of these treasures that we have culturally, all of us. UNESCO preserves monuments, but you're preserving memory. It's a different thing. It's harder to catalogue, impossible to restore. What knowledge will die with our generation, with your generation of guides, that no amount of preservation can capture?
Actually, in this case also, there is no loss, there is evolution. In the sense that we are not supposed to be teaching history or descriptions of edifices, etc. But we are obliged to convey what is Turkey. My generation has been witnessing different things. The future generations will witness other things. And the future generation guides are obliged to convey what they are witnessing. So, as single pieces of information, something will change, but the idea and what they will be doing and the importance of keeping, compiling, and conveying will not be changing.
But they stand on the shoulders of giants, and there is a responsibility that they hold to carry those oral traditions forward. Who's learning from you to be tomorrow's guide?
We train the younger generations for free. We train our successors only for the pleasure of conveying or transmitting what we've learned. So oral tradition remains.
Istanbul changes faster than most ancient cities. I mean, Rome is an ancient city. London, I suppose, it hasn't got the depth of history. Londinium, we could claim it's an ancient city.
In any case, it's an ancient
city. Yeah, exactly.
City.
But Istanbul changes faster than most ancient cities. Every morning, something's different. Every time I come to Istanbul, I see a new story emerging. A building's gone, a neighborhood's transformed, something's built. How do you guide through a city that's simultaneously eternal as well as ephemeral?
My duty is to convey what there is. So I keep compiling, I continue to observe, to witness, and to tell about what it is. So I don't look for the changes, I notice the changes, or I accumulate without noticing anyway. And every time I start telling about my city, I'm sure I convey what I accumulated.
You're an intellectual in an Instagram economy. You're looking at depth and history in a world of rapid transactions and changes. Visitors want photos, not philosophy. They want sharp now, boom, 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 as opposed to a depth of knowledge and a slow story. How do you smuggle depth past the selfie stick? How do you make or have you made peace with the sacrifice?
To smuggle the philosophy and the real history is the correct definition, the correct description. We are anyway friends with the visitors. So we simply chat, we simply use easier language, and we share their attention, we share their interest. In the meantime, try to add small drops of real information. So if they want pictures, they will have the pictures, but in the meantime, they will have pictures with our points of view.
Sedat, what site in Turkey, I mean, not a UNESCO famous story, desperately needs protection before it's lost. What are we about to lose while everyone's photographing the Blue Mosque?
Every single corner of Turkey deserves protection, and any corner left abandoned would risk collapse. But I'm not pessimistic. As we were saying, nothing is eternal, and we've been discovering much more than we could ever imagine. So something is going lost, but many more things are being discovered. If we don't lose this enthusiasm for discovery, for history, I'm sure we will gain more than we would lose.
I love that. I love the fact that you're not wedded to the past, but really a transcriber of the past. And I'm also hearing in this there is a necessity for presence as well as the opportunity to actually script it in terms of words. The two are different. One is capturing something in prose, and the other is experiencing it personally in the moment, in the place.
Yes, exactly. That is what I'm trying to do, to share, to convey what I witness, what I feel, having compiled and filtered what is the closest to truth.
Sedat, if you could take one person, anyone, alive or dead, through Istanbul to show them what their legacy became, who would it be and what would you show them?
You said to Istanbul, you didn't say...
No, I said to Istanbul.
To Istanbul, you didn't say to today's Istanbul.
No,
Therefore,
today's Istanbul.
You did not say so.
Okay.
So,
okay, you go ahead.
I would bring Constantine the Great, the refounder of the city of Istanbul, to the Istanbul of 1454.
Oh, that's great. Okay, good answer.
The year after the conquest of the city, to show him that his vision was great and his idea of bringing the capital of the Roman Empire to Istanbul was perfect. His vision was shared even 1,000 years later, and even the sovereigns of the forthcoming centuries would share it, would follow it, and his city was in good hands. It is still in good hands. The city was embraced by following sovereigns, protected, used, and who was here, he was proud. Who is here is still proud of being in Istanbul.
Okay, you've dedicated your life to memory in a city built on forgetting. Each empire erasing the last empire. Is preservation possible, or are we just slowing entropy? What's the point of remembering?
In this city, in this country, in Istanbul, in Turkey, civilizations did not erase the previous ones. At most, they erased the power of the previous ones. This is not Carthage. It was not deleted. New layers living together. So we're getting richer and richer, I can say.
Now, what's the point of remembering? What's the value of remembering?
I have never lived in a place where remembering was not a virtue. So remembering is part of our daily life. So it's very difficult to attribute a further value to something that is part of my life, our entire life.
It's an excellent answer. And in fact, with that answer in mind, someone somewhere out there listening to us now is going to be thinking about guide tours, is going to be thinking through the Istanbul you knew and the Istanbul they knew, describing it as ancient history. What do you hope they will remember about this moment, this city, Istanbul now, this civilization, the right here, the right now? What will they remember about us?
They will remember Istanbul, hopefully. I said nothing is eternal, but I'm biased. I want to believe Istanbul will be eternal.
The Queen of Cities is eternal. I mean, I'm with you.
And I hope it will be remembered not only because it was the center of power, but because it's always been a center between continents, a center of civilizations, but also a center in the sense of equal distances to various ideas, different people, different ideologies, different approaches. So being a center means togetherness. Being a center means sharing. Being a center means promising also for the future.
Listening to Professor Sedat Bornovalı today, I'm reminded that the greatest guides don't just show us places, they transform how we see. Like Turkish Airlines, which doesn't just transport bodies, but creates bridges of hospitality between cultures. Sedat turns tourism into pilgrimage, information into understanding, strangers into guests of history itself. He's not merely preserving the past, he's creating new ways to experience it, building fresh connections between ancient stones and modern souls. In his hands, guiding becomes performance art, where every tour is an unrepeatable masterpiece of timing, revelation, and the kind of Turkish grace that makes even difficult truths feel like gifts. In a world that moves too fast to remember yesterday, Sedat reminds us that joy lives in the details, wonder hides in the familiar, and the best stories are the ones that make us see our own stories differently. Thank you for joining us. If today's conversation awakened something, perhaps the desire to experience history as living presence rather than distant past, remember that Turkish Airlines flies to more countries than any other airline. Your next transformation might be waiting for you where ancient stones meet modern hearts. Until next time, keep exploring, keep connecting, and always widen your world, widen your mind. Safe travels, my friends.